in Oakland, in Rockridge, and in Noe Valley in San Francisco. I'm here tonight with Rebecca Wallace-Seagull from New York, who is our founder and director of Writopia Lab. She started it 11 years ago in New York City, and now it is here. And we're in many cities across the country. I'm also here with Kaylin, who's one of our instructors in the Bay Area. She's taking pictures, so you can wave and smile at her all night. And three Writopians, Percy, Chaya, and Sydney, have also been helping out and are here tonight as well. They're over here. Hi guys. Thank you for passing out programs. So we are thrilled to have partnered with Litquake to co-produce this inaugural year of the Bay Area Teen Writing Awards. And we are so happy that everybody, this is amazing that you all are here sitting on the floor, sitting on benches, finding your little corner of the room. And we're just so excited that you're here to celebrate these amazing young writers. And I want to give a shout out to Graham Todd, who is my co-producer of this event. He couldn't be here because he's running all of Litquake right now. So I'm here on behalf of both of us. And when we conceived of this award ceremony last April, Graham said, oh, don't worry about it. We'll probably just get 100 submissions. And we'll just sort of breeze through the reading. And we were going strong at 8 all summer. It was a little bit of a nail-biting time for us. And then when the September deadline rolled around, we had 220 submissions. So I was so excited to see all those submissions rolling and see the little numbers like climbing, on my screen. It was like waiting there at midnight while all you guys were submitting. I was so excited because all these young people passionate about writing, planting their flag in the writing community, and putting themselves out there, putting yourselves out there, was super exciting. I know it was a digital process, so you never know who's on the other side, but I was on the other side and very excited. So thank you to all who took that risk and who submitted. Quick overview of the program for tonight. So momentarily we're going to hear from the awarded poets. Then our keynote speaker, Shanti Sekaran, who is wonderful. We just had a chance to meet with her at the Muddy Waters down the street. Then we're going to hear from our awarded fiction writers. Then we'll honor all of our finalists, and we'll have all the finalists come up and receive their certificates and get to have a picture with them. And then we will move on to the final award reading, which will be the memoirist at the end. And then we will announce the scholarship recipients, which nobody knows. I mean, I know, but this will be news to the receivers of the scholarship and pretty much everybody else in this room. And we'll have a surprise reading at the end. So stay with us. I know that many of you are standing and legs are probably falling asleep, but please stay with us. Okay, so Kay Ryan, who is a former US Poet Laureate, who lives across the bridge in Marin. Have any of you heard of Kay Ryan or read Kay Ryan? I'm seeing some nods. One clap, thank you. So she said that you read a poem to know if you want to read a poem. And that's something that really stuck with me as a reader of poetry and a writer of poetry. And when I read these three awarded poems, I wanted to read them over and over again. And I kept discovering that I kept wanting to read them. And I hope that you will too, and I hope that will be your experience for the poets and for the other writers here tonight. We are going to be publishing all of the writers who are here tonight, both the awarded recipients and the finalists, in our literary magazine, The Ellipsis, which is our teen journal. And so you will have the opportunity, if you wish, in February to continue reading these writers and to read the pieces of the finalists as well. All right. Is there anything else I need to tell you before we move on? I don't think so. I hope not. I just want you to hear the poets. Okay. Great. So I'm going to call up the writers by genre. So we'll have all the poets actually come up together. And when I say your name, you can come on up and sort of wait here, and we'll go in order of the program and in the order that I call you. And so the first poet will come and read, and then they'll come back around and stand here. And so all the poets will be here sort of supporting each other as the one poet is reading. Cool? Okay. So, and Rebecca, I didn't give you the awards, but here they are. To hand out. So Rebecca will hand out the awards. They're in order. Yeah. Okay. So please help me welcome, and reader writers, when you are reading, don't forget to introduce yourself before you jump in. I know you can have nerves, and so just take a deep breath. Don't forget to introduce yourself before you share your beautiful work with us. And hold the mic close. Yeah, it's different. Very different. Clearly, I'm not a pro. Okay. So please help me welcome Jessica Schott Rosenfield, Amy Zhang, and Bella Coles. Pass the mic to Jessica. Sorry, Jessica, come on.
My name is Jessica Schott Rosenfield. I'm a student at Writopia School of the Arts, and this poem is called Plastic Hydrangea. I lie stretched across these papers, littered over a hardwood floor. Marta tried to polish it using Dad's dark wood correction. She worked 6 hours, apron coming untied whenever she bent down, and her glasses sliding to the tip of her nose. She worked around me, lifted my arms from the floor, and ran a rag beneath them, avoiding the papers which sobbed when the rag touched them. Most of the house was dusty and had been since Dad passed. A hydrangea plant was placed in the corner, brightly colored and potted neatly, but it was made of plastic and gathered dust. To tell the truth, the house had never been clean, only had blankets shoved over the things he didn't like to see, usually thrust into corners and put beneath piles of leaves in the backyard. I rarely wondered whether I knew him as I thought or as I saw, likely a figment of imagination when I hid behind trees, scared of a lawnmower in overalls, and with bangs I had cut myself while Marta polished the floors, avoided the papers. A physicality then when I finally emerged and saw him in the kitchen, away from the pile, decomposing near the fence, of the picket variety, never painted because he disliked lies, but polished like the floors. He cooked macaroni on the nights he was away, before he closed and locked the front doors, played Monopoly with me on the rug. I got up, stirring his papers, walked to the corner where the hydrangea stood, reached into the brightly colored pot, and felt damp soil.
Hi, I'm Amy Zhang. I go to Crystal Springs Upland School, and this is the poem, The Golden Era. Girls like moths, he said, musical, thrilling voices. Long, slender limbs, she said, silk column dresses. Tight, tilted faces, I read, framed by sleek bobs. 8 Louis heels softly bobbing, the thick throb of lifting thighs, T-straps dipping into plush grass. They're getting muddy. Calves, long and shapely, burn with lactic acid. Misty pale in the sunset drip, one girl spells L's of her arms, crosses their raised nap, guarding her rib-ridged chest. Who designed this hill? It's awful cold. At the house, the doorbell lost in cheerful chatter. Maybe press it again? Show themselves in, confident women, uncertain girls. The cheap smear of polysatin, running, splashing, hiding across dresses. The hostess appears, pulled patch in her sleeve, wide in the electric glare. Gaping threads, perfectly even teeth. Look slippery, like bathwater on composite countertops. Necks swiveling like swans, uneasy. Scanning, leaping, from face to frizz-topped face. Is that a crown? No, a helmet of gaudy yellow hair reassembled, stiff as laughter. Crescent moon in reverse, dirt under a trimmed pointer nail, against the sky of smuggled smiles. The elegant flow of another gallant pour, champagne groping awkwardly for the glass caught off guard. Uneven eyeliner, conversation, the wet sound of it.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bella Coles. I'm a senior at Oakland School for the Arts, and this is a poem called Metallic Capital. Probably will not be titled that in a week, but for now, that's the title. Peering into this coffee as if some proletariats were drowning. Fair trade beans at the bowl. Berkeley moms eat that shit up. New trends put jewels in teeth, and neoliberalism is this metallic shard in everyone's teeth. And adolescence is being mined. Below earth, there is no international law. And everyone above the second floor is walking morality, a tightrope, switching footing. But the carnality of used pavement, used city continues. If you plant enough trees by the highway, maybe something good will come of this ragged breath. The exhaust pipe and I, eating less than our share of the wealth, excreting some sort of secret that's going to take everything down in its path, lay the concrete smooth, all sunny. How easy can it be to divide land? Zadie plows snow when winter still thawed, moves one driveway to the next, builds earth, breaks fascists with spoon. I cut my own bangs. I've eaten 7 years at this point, and everybody in Oakland is still hungry. And it's ironic that my Zadie's a Marxist because he's got the same facial hair as Marx himself. But maybe that's just the Williams Avenue, Bagel Boy delivery, tenement brick, 4 walls from Brooklyn to New Brunswick. And you can fit the entire state of Israel, Palestine, into New Jersey, but nobody wants to talk about New Jersey. Everybody wants to talk about closed business, about cracked pavement and weather patterns. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your gorgeous and provocative poetry with us. All right, so now it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. I first saw her at the Berkeley Public Library Authors Dinner last February, and I thought to myself, I really hope we can get her to speak at a Writopia event. And when I finally worked up the nerve to reach out to her, she was very gracious and enthusiastic about joining us here tonight, and generous with her time. So Shanti Sekaran lives in Berkeley, California, teaches writing at Mills College. Her recent novel, Lucky Boy, was named an Indie Next Great Read, an NPR Best Book of 2017. It won the Housatonic Book Award and was a finalist for the Stanford University's Soroyan International Prize for Writing. Her essays and stories have also appeared in the New York Times, Salon.com, and the LA Review of Books. She's a member of the San Francisco Writers Grotto, an AWP mentor, and a mother of 2. Please help me welcome Shanti Sekaran.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Michaela, for inviting me. So first of all, congratulations to all of our winners and our finalists, and congratulations to their parents and guardians and families and friends. Yeah, it's great to have a writer for a kid. It's also a wild ride, so brace yourselves. I know, because I have 2 kids, I have 2 sons, they're 5 and 10. I know how kind of exhilarating and also a little terrifying it can be to have your children present themselves to the public world. And so I have so much admiration for the writers who have put themselves out there, who've had the courage to submit their work, which, you know, adult writers don't even have the courage to submit their work most of the time. And to you parents and guardians for supporting them in that effort. So, oh boy, Litquake. So to talk a little bit for a moment about myself. The first thing that I remember writing was a poem when I was 5 years old, and my parents still have the artwork. It was a poem, and it went, "Butterfly, go to my mother, whisper softly that I love her." I memorized that. But I wasn't a prolific writer, and not even in high school. One thing I remember writing in high school was a film adaptation of A Tale of Two Cities for my English class, and it starred me and two friends and a troll doll who played Monsieur Manet, the sort of father. So at that age, when I was in high school, writing for me was homework. And it was only in my early 20s that I learned that I could express myself, that I could process the things that I loved, that I could process the things that hurt me, that I could get out all the gunk through writing. That's when I sort of discovered that. And as I read through tonight's winners and listened to their readings so far, I found in those words so much compassion and strength and attention to detail and such gutsy voices and so much confidence that I really admire and wish that I had at that age. And I admire not just the winners, not just the finalists, but as I said, everyone who had the courage to put themselves out there for this contest. Because I'm sure you all know that awards don't make you a writer. So I've been writing seriously and professionally for 20 years now, and I won my first award last week. So, thank you. It's writing that makes us writers. And no matter what you become, if you don't end up making writer your job title as adults, you can and must continue to express yourselves creatively as writers or artists or musicians. And why do I say must? I say must because I look around the world and I see a world where we have millions of people who don't have a creative outlet. They're good people who go to work, who work honestly and nobly and support their families, but they don't have a way to creatively express themselves. And you writers have found that already. And now that you've found it, don't let it go. It might morph into music, it might morph into, I don't know, visual art, but keep that outlet going for yourselves. It's so important. And you are lucky to have that already. To the young writers here, you're in a world right now where so much is happening, so much social upheaval and so much trouble. And I know the young people around me are so much more plugged in, so much more aware of what's happening in their world than I was. I didn't have social media. I had the radio and the television and newspapers. So you as young writers have a special task ahead of you. Your task is to tell the story of what you see around you, to tell the story of who you are and what you think. People will tell you that one writer won't make a difference in this world, but tell that to Frederick Douglass, to Virginia Woolf, to Chinua Achebe, to Harriet Beecher Stowe, to Alexander Hamilton, to Maya Angelou. As writers and thinkers, you are the ones who hold the change, who can tell the story of what you see in this world. And there's nothing more revolutionary than picking up a pen and saying, this is what I see, this is what I think, this is who I am here. I'm so glad that all of you are here tonight. And I'm so excited for a lifetime of your stories. So thank you. Thank you for being here. It's now my pleasure and honor to introduce the fiction writers who are going to read for us. So we're going to have Percy Unger and Dante Kirkman and Lily Wansowicz.
Percy. I go to Oakland Tech, and this story is, well, it's an excerpt from the story that I wrote called The Telescope. The back garden was wet and cool. Twilight was fading, and his bare feet tingled as he made his way through the grass to the edge of the woods. His large, lonely house was still visible, but now he was more apart from everything. The telescope was rusty. He hadn't used it in ages, but his fingers recollected the grooves and elaborate moldings from evenings past in years gone by, when they would sit on the wet ground with the dampening trees all around them, silent together as they watched. It would be so different without her beside him, gasping in awe at the sight of every familiar face, her brown eyes wide with joy. It was her telescope, but they had always taken turns, knowing without speaking when to pass it over. He wanted that comfortable wordlessness back. He knew the telescope so well that he remembered instantly how to adjust the lenses. It fit perfectly in his wrinkled hand, his crooked forefinger clasping the grip exactly. He glanced around the forest falling into night for a moment and put the glass to his eye. Immediately they appeared like fireworks bursting into being, or sparks flying out of a fire and into the darkness, appearing brightly in the black. They sprang from leaf to flower and fluttered in small clusters, anywhere a ray of light still existed between the trees. They moved so quickly it was as if they flickered, and their little bodies blurred with movement. Some danced in circles, holding hands. Their wings were thin and sharp, but made of fiery cobwebs that shone in the surreal minutes between sunset and dark. The microscopic leaping figures maneuvered themselves with such grace and fluidity, it was almost as if their miniature human frames hummed audibly with motion. They laughed often, but he could not hear them, and their faces were tiny and sweet. His eyes began to water because he had not blinked, and he was forced to move the telescope to wipe away the tears. The everyday world around him was beautiful in its own right, but empty. At least he had seen them. The beauty had remained even through all the months he couldn't bring himself to seek it. He missed her now with a pang of bitter sadness, and with one last look around the vacant and deepening night, he put the telescope back into its pouch for another day.
I'm Lily Wanswich. I go to the Harker School, and this is my fiction piece, and it's untitled. I remember this one time that summer when Bonnie made me come with her to the community pool. Her hair was in 2 French braids, the blue dip-dyed ends tickling her collarbones. It was frizzy all over, like she had combed the curls when her hair was dry. The ends were split and dry from the chlorine, but Bonnie said she wasn't cutting it until it reached her waist. She'd been sunburned at least a half-dozen times already that summer, and the skin on her shoulders was shiny pink and peeling. Her mother had made her wear one of those straw fobby hats, and between that and the heart-shaped sunglasses perched on her nose, I couldn't see much of her face at all. We were sitting in a pair of Adirondack chairs next to the deep end. The concrete pool deck was so hot that even though I was wearing a pair of pink plastic flip-flops, my feet felt like they were burning. I remember looking at the pool tile, noticing that half of the porcelain squares were spidered with cracks. Large sections were coated with some type of fungus, something thin and white, mildew, maybe. In the corners of the pool, drowned bugs floated on their backs. 50 or so feet to our left, the teenage lifeguard was asleep behind his aviator sunglasses. I watched as Bonnie stood and peeled off her cover-up, hanging it over the back of the chair. She was wearing a rainbow ruffled tankini. She was so thin that year I could see all of the bones in her back. She kicked off her sandals and walked towards the edge of the pool, dipping in one foot and swirling her toes around just below the water surface. And then she stepped back, pointed her hands above her head, and gracefully dove into the deep end.
I'm Dante Kirkman. I'm an African-American writer from Palo Alto High School in Palo Alto, and this is an excerpt from my short story titled This Negro Speaks of Rivers. So I grabbed the cutlass and brandished it for real at their whack asses. They just laughed even harder and called me a crash test dummy. Then I burned rubber because guns beat swords. I spotted someone else doing business, and that particular fool sold me some blunts and said he'd show me the river. But I said that's all right. I didn't want to get robbed today. I drove towards the 710, also built along the river, to the park my weed grocer said. I sat a while and smoked, but this weed was not chilling me out. I was getting agitated, but I felt a manic, triumphant strength. I got out, raised my sword like that white Commander Holden, and charged towards the river. Everything was spinning and there was a loud clicking noise in my head, but I was a Mandingo warrior, not white or whack. I climbed the ladder to the top of the levee and then slid down the parched river where I rolled in the mud and put war paint on. I made up an African ceremony and cut an X into the palms of my hands. It was bloody, but I felt exalted. I had found the river. It was the Euphrates, the Congos, the Mississippi. It smelled like turkey gravy. Then I saw flashing pictures in the sky of blue and red chirping sounds, and the metal dinosaur birds attacked. I had the strength of 10 men until the lightning bolts went through me and it got dark. They told me later it was PCP, but I know it was voodoo magic. Felicia visits sometimes. She says she's not my wife, but I know she is, so I let it go. Mom and Dad converted the pool house so I could leave that hospital again. They took my sword, but I still have my warrior scars. I am going to part the water in the swimming pool like Moses, and if I am worthy, drown myself like that damn cracker part of me, Elisar Lycurgus Holden, in the ancient river.
Thank you for taking us to that range of worlds, just that both magical and realistic. I would now like to welcome to the stage, I guess the staging area, all of our finalists who are in the audience. Some finalists couldn't make it today, but we're going to read their names anyway to honor them. So when your name is called, and I'm going to be reading it alphabetically by first name, you can step forward and receive your certificate, but we're going to ask all, if you're a finalist, come on up now so we can give you a warm round of applause and celebrate you. So please give them a round of applause. Alexandra Gold, Alexandra Shahanifar, Annie Chang, Annie Ma, Chaya Tong, Christina Wong, Daniela Castillo, Emma Grief, Jackie Lincroft, Jacob Zhu, Kai Sam Fong, Kate Richardson, Liza Kalbasov, Mara Tucker, Megan Yu, Prajna Baretti, Pramila Kotopalli, Sandra Chen, Sarah Fang, Sia Desale, Sophie Orkin, Sydney Reamer, Trinity Bala, Valerie Wu, and Vivian Tran. A huge ovation. I just didn't give anybody enough time to actually give out the certificates.
No? Okay. Nassim? Charlie?
Those. Here, yeah, those are.
Aaron? Aditi? Alexandra? Yeah, all right. Another Alexandra. Is that the right one? Yeah. Excellent. Annie Chang? Annie Ma? Tom. Christina Wayne? Daniela Castillo? Emma Grief. Congratulations. Yes. Jackie Lincroft. Congratulations. Jacob Zhao. Hi, Sam. Kate Richardson. Liza sir. Or, it's not there. It's not there. Megan, you. Prina, what's that? Prajna? Pramila. Sandra, Chen. Sarah Fain. Sia. I think Sophie or Sophie Orkin. It's a really pretty font. It's hard to read. Cindy Rieger. Trinity Bala. Bye. Valerie Wu. Vivian Tramp. Oh, that's the last one. Did everyone who's on? Yeah? Okay. How about everybody group bow? Thank you so much. May this acknowledgement inspire you to keep writing, because your words move people. And that's what we want from our writing, is to be able to say something. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula. For our final trio of readings, we'll hear from our awarded memoirists. I was floored when I read these pieces. Each took me to a very different, a very visceral place, and I cannot wait for you to hear them. So let's get right to it. Please give a warm welcome to Ashni Mathuria, Nassim Alavi, and Charlie Stipe.
Hi, my name is Ashni. I'm a senior at Mission San Jose High School, and my piece is a memoir piece titled Inside the Ribcage. People tell me I look just like my mother. It took me years to see it. The structure of our cheeks, the shape of our smiles. A few weeks ago, when my mother drove me home from the airport, I looked down at my hands and was startled to see hers. I hadn't realized I'd known them so well. The wrinkles on the joints of her fingers, the patterns of crevices at the base of her knuckles. I don't know how to explain my mother. My childhood memories of her are shaped by numbers. Every day we sat on the swing in the backyard, my older brother's textbooks between us. I fancied myself a prodigy. I sat proudly in the front row of college classes in calculus, C++, chemistry. Now when I look back, I remember my mother driving me to the community college an hour away 3 days a week. I remember she brought me lunch to eat in the car. I remember that when I sat for exams, it was her numbers that spilled out of my pencil, her numbers that she'd seared into my skin, her numbers that had flattened me into my seat and slapped the cheers off of my cheeks. Only it wasn't her numbers. It was her father's. When I go to India every few years, I see them still on the swing of my grandparents' porch, overlooking the dusty street air and the stray dogs that wander the back roads. My mother, pale and fragile in her youth, feet curled underneath her with a book of trigonometry in her lap. Her father, my Nana, sitting upright beneath the creaking chains, gnarled skin sallowing into itself. When I was 13, Nana cupped my face in his hands, held my cheeks up against my mother's. He was looking at me, I was looking at him and at Nani on the couch, and at my mother's face radiant above mine. My mother is beautiful. I wonder what combination of Nani and Nana's genes led to this. Nani, with her wizened body stooped into the ground over her walking stick, Nana, his round face, bulbous nose, peeling brown skin. Maybe it comes from neither of them. Maybe it's the basin she grinds into her body every day, the henna and the coconut oil in which she steeps her hair overnight. Maybe it's the manicures and the kajal and the hair irons, all coalescing into the image of a woman who has found the fountain of youth and bathed herself luxuriant. My mother had wanted to be a doctor. That was before Nana tore open her chest and fashioned her a new spine, made of functions and integrals and logarithms. Now when I touch my ribs through my chest, I do not know how much of my bones is my own and how much is what my mother has welded into me. I don't know how to explain my mother. I was 12 when she began the inevitable descent from infallibility. The day the world splintered into pieces around us, I remember she sobbed, holding herself together in the corner of the hospital room. "It's not your fault," I said. My mother stopped crying once the doctor stitched me shut. She failed me is what I tell my friends 4 years later when people still stop to stare at my scars. My friends are quick to agree. What kind of mother could erase 2 years with a wave of her hand, could look her daughter in the eye and laugh about mental illnesses, because why don't those girls who starve themselves just eat, and oh, maybe I have social anxiety too. Now I think that maybe it was easier that way. I remember how my mother cried, like the needles that dove in and out of my wrist had torn open her skin. People tell me I look just like my mother. I wonder how it must feel to stand there powerless and watch your image tear itself apart. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nassim. I'm a senior at Oakland School for the Arts, and this piece is called Home. Along with the great secret of Farsi, weekly trips to the Persian cemetery in Nevada was a delicacy I shared with my dad. The place flowered with Persian grandmas clutching chadors to their chins and fathers with stiff collars and cologne. I was proud of my dad for not being one of those. He wore the same perfume as my mom. Everything he wore was soft like the unused side of a towel. Once I asked why we came to the cemetery every week. He said something about it being a good reminder of our mortality. You can visit me there one day, he added. Huh? When I'm in the ground, like my mom and dad. I couldn't imagine him fitting underground or staying still for that long. Where are Mama Buzurge and Baba Buzurge? I asked. Deep under earth in Iran, he replied. Did I ever meet Mama Buzurge? You missed her by a few years. What about Baba Buzurge? I pressed. He passed away a long time ago. What happened to him? No matter how many times I asked my dad the story of what happened to my grandpa, he never offered enough detail. We didn't live together, he said. I only got to see him a few times during my childhood. You should be glad we get this much time together. The first time I went to Iran, my dad walked us by a small building hiding behind scaffolding. Without stopping, he mentioned, Baba Buzurge had his mosque here. The door slightly ajar, a pink carpet covered in construction dust lay on the ground. What happened? I asked. The government shut it down. Why? They're tricksters. I wanted to pause there, imagine it decked out with turquoise tiles and praying women, what my grandpa might have looked like. Pigeons stained and peddling cockroaches on the walls. I had a hard time imagining Tehran had changed much in the last 50 years, except for more women with lipstick and wore chador. Or maybe it would have been regal, ceiling etched with varnished woodwork and paisleys sailing down the columns. Would there have been a separate room for kids to whisper loudly as their parents prayed, or would they be crammed in back next to all the sparrow-orons and prayer beads? Instead of leaving me with time to wonder, he hurried us into a basement restaurant down the block, air-conditioned enough to be breathable. I ordered orange, Fanta, and my dad ordered brown, Coke, the only two options besides black tea. We shared a plate of kebab and long-grained rice, yellowed with saffron and butter. He told me kebab was the only thing worth ordering at restaurants because everything else my aunt cooked was better.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking it out. My name is Charlie. I go to Oakland School for the Arts, and this is an excerpt from my essay, The Blue House. Okay. The blue house was always dirty. My room was always dirty. I had a linoleum floor I would lay naked on in the summer listening to records. With the music off, I could hear every rustle in the house below. Every toilet flush, every floorboard, the sizzling of the pan. I remember 2 a.m. on Sundays when my dad and Nicole would have sex. I would turn my headphones up all the way, patiently waiting for it to be over. I wasn't bothered, but I was confused. At age 11, I was coming into a sexuality that, paired with my ebbing childhood, felt morbid. I was uncomfortable, detached from my body rather than working in unison with my muscles, my skin, my hair. We had a dying agave plant in the front yard. The way agave plants die is that they acquire a thick, rapidly growing stalk in the center. In the last 6 months we were at the Blue House, the stalk went from 6 to 20 feet tall, a towering trophy in our yard that was otherwise made up of dirt and weeds. Eventually it went black and keeled over, but I was so proud of it when I walked up to the front door. It was so victorious, so defiant. One day I came home on a breathless taupe afternoon, The air was hot and cold, the kind that gives you chills from the sweat on your upper lip. I walked onto the back porch to see my stepmom with an orange traffic cone and a hatchet. She had a squirming white chicken in her hands, feathers dirty and fluffed. I remember moping at dinner, my stepmom saying we just couldn't take care of them anymore. We probably ate chicken that night. Or if not that night, the one after, or maybe the one after that. There is guilt in meat, as is there joy. I don't think I ever cried at the Blue House. I would burn things in a little ceramic bowl. I would hammer holes in my walls and then cover them up with postcards. I would rearrange the furniture. Was it the place or time that bred that waiting feeling? The tenuous insecurity of middle school or the elusive messiness of the house? Or was it the magic of the neighborhood, something I felt I wasn't able to participate in? I was too hesitant, too tense. I didn't fit into that orange-purple time of late afternoon. Always buzzing, always still, always muggy. Thank you.
One more time, a huge ovation for all of our readers. One of my favorite books on writing is Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones. Has anybody read that in here? So I want to thank all the writers here today for taking such risks and being so honest in your writing and writing so close to the bone. That was one of the ideas that I got from her in her book, Writing at the Bone. In your fiction, in your poetry, and perhaps particularly in memoir when there is nothing to hide behind. Yet all three genres have a way of revealing a deep and vulnerable part of ourselves. So thank you. Thank you all for writing. We have two $250 scholarships to announce. The scholarships were generously donated by Mark Finnemore at Mythic Picnic. This year's recipients for outstanding works by an 11th or 12th grade writer are Dante Kirkman and Charlie Stipe. Deliver the checks to you. Congratulations. Congratulations. All right. Before I hand it over to Rebecca for our closing, I have a few housekeeping announcements. We have a lot of fun things coming up. The Scholastic Writing Awards are another award ceremony that the deadline is December 12th. And if you're a writer, please don't leave it because we need to take a group picture at the end. But that is another opportunity to get your writing out there. Scholastic Arts and Writings, you can look it up online. We run half-day workshops and holiday workshops, half-day holiday workshops at our Rockridge and Noe Valley locations. So if you're interested in tapping into a writing community, perhaps writing with some of the writers that are here tonight, and getting ideas or bringing in a story and wanting feedback and having mentorship, we would love, love, love to see you. Next one is on Veterans Day. We also have our winter trimester workshops starting right after Thanksgiving on Monday, November 26th. So that is another opportunity for writing community and to be with other writers and getting feedback. We also will be hosting the National Write-In on April 14th. This is many months away, so you can get out your calendars and put it, save the date for next year. What else? Other publishing opportunities. All Writopia writers have the opportunity to submit to our teen writing journal, The Ellipsis, so that's another way for you to get published. But all of the writers here will be published in that journal that will come out in February. So keep your eyes open for that, and we will be sending out emails when it does. In case you didn't know, at Writopia we use a sliding scale, and we've never turned anybody away for an inability to pay. So we really are a community for everybody, a writing community for everybody. If you have ideas about ways that we can be involved in your community, if you are in San Francisco or Oakland or coming from other places around the Bay Area, we partner with schools and do after-school programs and other kinds of things as well. So we'd love to know if you are having an idea, an inspiration for a way that we can connect with more young writers. Great, okay, so there will be a brief, there's also more information on the table with flyers and that sort of thing. We'll have a brief reception after the closing remarks. Thank you all for coming. I hope to read more of your writing in the future.
I won't keep us long. I just want to this is a moment to say thank you so much to so many people. First of all, congratulations. Your writing is incredibly powerful to hear tonight, and for the finalists, your writing is so powerful to read, and you should all submit it so it all gets to get read widely to the Ellipsis magazine. I want to acknowledge the families who are here today. As Shanti said, you can't have writers without support. You can't. Kids and teens, it's hard you can't write in an environment unless there are people who are giving you this space to write and are letting you express your truth. So a big round of applause to all the adults in the room who are supporting. Thank you, Shanti, again. Your words were so beautiful. And so Writopia, your entire message. And congratulations on your award last week. And thank you, of course, to Litquake. I think they may have just stepped out, but for whoever is still here from Litquake, thank you. This has been an incredibly exciting opportunity for Writopia to join the literary community in the Bay Area. Really incredible. What an honor to be part of it and to bring our writers into this platform and into this community that they so deserve to be part of. And thank you to Joe and Mission Workshop for being such incredible hosts. They've let us have the slideshow and gave us this stage and gave us this really cool environment surrounded by really cool bags we should all look at. Pretty cool. And really, most importantly, I want to say thank you to Michaela for producing this entire event. Without her, none of this would be happening in the Bay Area. And now we are going to read the group poem together. Come on up. So we're very excited to read now to share back with you the words that you shared with us. So everyone in this room is a writer. Come, let's do it together. Go back and forth.
I remember some words, but not others.
I regret the day I didn't stand up for myself and I let her yell at me.
I believe it does not have to end in darkness.
I dream of healing of souls, more light than dark, compassionate pools to taste by our tongues, to heal by this gift of life.
I create because it brings the joy.
I dream of a bright and beautiful world.
I love my family.
Oh, I love the time between 6 and 6:30 in the morning when no one else is awake.
I love silence.
Which is spelled S-Y-E-L-E-N-C-E. Anyway. I believe in walking in yesterday's rain.
I love Pee Wee Herman's Christmas special.
I remember my grandma's butterscotch pie at Christmas.
I remember, therefore I.
I hope that dinner tastes really great tonight. Thank you for all the poets in the room.